Batman Year One. Interesting choice, Matt Reeves. Hey everybody, it's Marshall Monkey here, and yes, it is a rumor that the Batman film that Matt Reeves is directing is going to be a adaptation of Batman Year One. Now, there is a lot of positive and a lot of negative to this story, and we're going to break it down as to what Batman Year One is. If you haven't seen it or read the comic, there's an animated film about it. And we'll talk about what I think about being a live-action version if this rumor is true. But we're going to break down the characters that are also associated with this story. So let's just get started. So Batman Year One is a comic book story released in 2011, written by Frank Miller. Now, if you don't know who Frank Miller is, he also wrote The Dark Knight Returns, which Zack Snyder used to give us the tone and base it around Ben Affleck's Batman for BVS. So Matt Reeves is kind of pulling from the same material, or I guess the same writing style that Zack Snyder took from as well, because it's the same writer. So that's a pretty interesting choice, right? Batman Year One is also an origin story, so it kind of messes around with the Batman's origin. And it's a pretty interesting one. Now, recently, news broke from Joe Manganiello himself that the Deathstroke movie is still in the works. I don't really believe him. I think that Warner Brothers is telling him it's still in the works, but really, it's a dead project. I mean, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to happen, to be quite honest with you. But Ben Affleck's Batman movie was supposed to be Deathstroke versus Batman, right? And it was going to be this huge, fighting movie, basically, battle movie between both characters, and he was the main villain of the film, and it was going to take place in Gotham. Could have had cameos in it. The script was finished. Never seen the script, but I thought that movie would have been interesting too. Now, with this Batman Year One, this takes place again in the first years from Bruce Wayne being Batman, right? So it's an origin story. So that means by Ben Affleck, he's going to have to be recasted. And most likely, Jeremy Irons and J.K. Simmons are also going to have to be recasted as well. Meaning, we're going to younger Commissioner Gordon, a younger Alfred, younger Batman, and I just don't see that being... I don't know. I don't see it, right? I don't see that. I mean, I guess you could keep Irons and keep Simmons and just kind of dye their hair and maybe take a few years off with makeup. But at the same time, you're if they're going to make a younger Bruce Wayne, you can't really have J.K. Simmons casted, right? It just doesn't really make sense. Maybe Jeremy Irons, but I don't think Jeremy Irons would care at this point because he said he only does the DC movies for money. So bye-bye Jeremy Irons, bye-bye Ben Affleck, and most likely bye-bye J.K. Simmons. That means recasting the whole thing. So basically, rebooting. Yay! I think this is a terrible idea. I love Ben Affleck's Batman, and if they did recast, I would be upset, but I could live with it. If they kept Irons, Simmons, kept Leto, all these other characters around the Batman mythos. If they just did a whole reboot about it, it wouldn't really make sense to me. Also, if they casted this younger Batman, does that mean we have a 20 to 30-year-old Batman, maybe mid-20s even, teaming up with Ezra Miller, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa? Right? It just doesn't fit if you have a young Batman in the DCEU stuff. It just really doesn't make sense, right? Now, also, you have to remember this is going to be in the DCEU, or at least that's the plan. So how are you going to make Batman Year One tie into the DCEU? Because they've got to start tying this universe together, or else it just doesn't make sense. I mean, this movie's going to be set in the first year as Bruce Wayne is Batman, so there really isn't any ties to Henry Cavill's Superman, to Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and they can't go back and start those ties because he only finds out about Wonder Woman and Superman when Man of Steel happens in BVS, right? So you can't cheat on it. Also, there's a lot of negatives to this story. Also, Robin, right? We're not going to get any ties to the Bat family. And after Zack Snyder had that very brief but very intriguing Jason Todd tease in BVS, how can you not follow up on that in a Batman solo film? So no Robin, right? Because it's Batman's just too young, and there's no way Robin would be old enough to don the suit, right? So there's just no way. So bye-bye Bat family. And I think it's kind of stupid to focus on an origin story film when we've just been wanting a Bat family film for so long. We haven't gotten a good one at all. So to just skip that is a little weird, right? Now let's get to the pros to this, because there is some good stuff about this. So the Penguin is still rumored, and I think that the Penguin being the villain wouldn't be necessarily a great thing if he was alone. I don't think the Penguin is a good solo film villain to go up against. It's just not, it just doesn't make sense to me, right? Like, he can't fight. He usually sends henchmen after Batman. So what's the point, right? They made it work with Joker in The Dark Knight, but still, I don't think, this isn't a Nolan film, right? Well, who knows if Matt Reeves could do it. But if Penguin has Two-Face, right, because Harvey Dent is in the Year One storyline and they just fast-track his Two-Face transformation, that could possibly work if you have two villains working together to go up against Batman. So, it could work. I don't know for sure if that would be something people would want to see, though. I think that Two-Face has already been done before. Penguin's already been done before, right? And so I think it just, seeing them team up could be interesting, but at the same time, you're like, and I have a solution to what this movie should be like in a second. But we also get to see Catwoman. Now, we've also seen Catwoman before by Michelle Pfeiffer and Anne Hathaway, both very good Catwomans, but we could get an all-new Catwoman combining the two. I feel like Nolan got a lot of stuff right about Catwoman that Michelle Pfeiffer could have borrowed from, and I feel like Michelle Pfeiffer got a lot of things about Catwoman that Anne Hathaway could have borrowed from. So combining the two of them to make the perfect Catwoman, it would actually be pretty cool, to be quite honest with you. And I personally want to see Catwoman into the DCEU, but again, this is set like way before any of that stuff happens. So, again, it's back and forth. There's a lot of pros and cons to it, but I feel like Catwoman would be a really good character to bring into the mix because she's always been a classic Batman character. So to not bring her in would just be really weird. Even if they didn't do this type of solo film, I still would have wanted her in the movie anyway, right? In whatever film they would go with. Now, back to the whole Ben Affleck thing. So I have a solution as to how they could do a good Batman film without doing Year One, because a lot of people don't want to see a Batman origin story again. By the way, Batman Year One, the comic, also has the Batman origin of how his parents got killed in the alleyway. Don't want to see that again. Anyway, what I think they should do is they should do a Batman Under the Red Hood storyline. So let me break this down for you. Batman, Ben Affleck, he's likely leaving the DCEU just because of the lack of news we've heard. So if you were going to do a present-day film with Under the Red Hood, you could still recast Ben Affleck without having to recast everybody else. So it kind of fits with that. 2, Red Hood is a villain we have never seen before. Jason Todd is going to be introduced in Titans, the DC Universe streaming service show, but I think we'd really like to see a movie-level Red Hood, right? I mean, think about it. He's, very cinematic character. He has the combat skills to go up against Batman. He's been never before seen in a film, so I think it just makes sense to bring him in at this point because, it also provides us with rich history from the Bat family. You could bring in Dick Grayson for a cameo, maybe even some of the other Bat family characters, right? Barbara Gordon possibly. Just kind of mix around and play around with those different characters while you're fighting Jason Todd. It's so perfect, right? I mean, it's so freaking cool. Then, as another villain who Red Hood is trying to track down and Batman's trying to stop both, you could also introduce Black Mask. I actually broke this down in my DCEU chapters video that I would really want to see this as a Batman solo film. And there's more. You could bring in Jared Leto and Margot Robbie because they both took down Jason Todd as a team, right, in the Death of the Family storyline. And the Death of the Family scene where Joker and Harley kill Jason could be the opener of the Batman solo film, right? It would just be so perfect, and I don't remember who it was for sure. I think it was Jared Leto's Joker who had the dead Robin tattoo, so and he could see him getting the tattoo after it's done. It would just be so freaking cool, right? That's my solution to a Batman solo film instead of Batman Year One. But I understand why Matt Reeves wants to do this storyline. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think Batman Year One is a good story to kind of convey into the DCEU? Or would you rather see maybe Batman Under the Red Hood? What Batman film would you want to see, right? What film would you want to be introduced into the DCEU with Ben Affleck? Or if not Ben Affleck, who would you choose? Don't forget to comment, favorite, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.